The airport terminal buzzed with chaos. But for Ethan Caldwell, the world stopped when the flight attendant tore his first-class ticket in half. "We don't serve your kind here," the man sneered, his voice slicing through the hum of travelers. Ethan's heart plummeted, his partner Liam's hand tightening around his own as the sting of humiliation burned. It was 2010, San Francisco International Airport, a place Ethan, a 28-year-old graphic designer, thought was a haven of acceptance. He and Liam, a 30-year-old environmental lawyer, had saved for months for this trip, a first-class flight to New York for their 5th anniversary. Their love, hard-won against small-town prejudices, felt invincible until that moment. The ticket, a symbol of their triumph, now lay in pieces on the counter. Ethan's blue eyes locked onto Liam's, searching for strength. Liam, always the steadier one, squeezed his hand, his jaw tight. "We're not leaving," Liam whispered, his voice low but fierce. The terminal seemed to fade, the crowd's murmurs a distant hum, as Ethan's mind raced. This wasn't just about them, it was about every person who'd ever been shamed for who they loved. The flight attendant, a middle-aged man with a starched uniform and a name tag reading Mark, stood unyielding. "Company policy," he said, shrugging, as if that justified his cruelty. Ethan's chest tightened, anger mixing with disbelief. He'd heard of discrimination, but to face it so blatantly, in a city like San Francisco, felt like a betrayal of everything he believed in. Liam stepped forward, his voice steady but sharp. "Your policy allows you to rip up a paid ticket because we're gay?" The question hung in the air, drawing the attention of nearby passengers. A woman with a toddler glanced over, her expression shifting from curiosity to unease. A businessman in a suit lowered his phone, his brow furrowing. Ethan felt the weight of their stares, but Liam's defiance anchored him. Mark's smirk faltered, but he doubled down. "You're holding up the line. Move along or I'll call security." The threat sent a chill through Ethan, but Liam's grip kept him grounded. They'd fought too hard to be together, through disapproving parents, whispered slurs in their small Ohio hometown, and the fear of being outed in their early careers. This wasn't the first time they'd faced hate, but it was the first time it felt like the world was watching. Ethan's voice, usually soft, found an edge. "Call them. Let everyone see what you're doing." His words surprised even himself, but the fire in his chest was undeniable. He wasn't just fighting for their flight, he was fighting for their dignity. For every couple like them who'd been told they didn't belong. The terminal grew quieter, the tension palpable. A young woman with a backpack stepped closer, her phone already recording. "This is wrong," she said loudly, her voice cutting through the silence. Others nodded, murmurs of agreement rippling through the crowd. Ethan's heart pounded, not just with fear but with a flicker of hope. Maybe they weren't alone. Mark's face reddened, his confidence cracking. "You're making a scene," he hissed, but Ethan saw the shift, the power dynamic tilting. Liam pulled out his phone, his lawyer instincts kicking in. "What's your full name, Mark? And your supervisors? I'd like to know who endorses this policy." The crowd grew bolder. A man in a pilot's uniform approached, his expression grim. "What's going on here?" he asked, his tone authoritative but calm. Ethan's pulse raced as he explained, his voice shaking but clear. The pilot, Captain Reynolds, listened intently, his eyes narrowing at Mark. "This isn't how we operate," he said firmly. "Give me your badge." Mark stammered, but the captain's authority was unshakable. As Mark handed over his badge, Ethan felt a surge of vindication, but it was bittersweet. The torn ticket still lay on the counter, a reminder of how quickly joy could turn to shame. Liam squeezed his hand again, a silent promise. They'd get through this. Captain Reynolds turned to them, his voice softening. "I'm sorry you went through this. I'll personally ensure you're on that flight in first class." The crowd erupted in applause, and Ethan's eyes stung with tears. It wasn't just about the flight anymore. It was about standing up, being seen, and refusing to be erased. As they boarded the plane, Ethan glanced at Liam, whose calm exterior hid the storm Ethan knew was brewing inside. They settled into their seats, the luxury of first class feeling hollow after the ordeal. Ethan leaned against Liam, whispering, "We can't let this go." Liam nodded, his eyes fierce. "We won't." That night, in their New York hotel, Ethan couldn't sleep. The incident replayed in his mind. The sneer, the torn ticket, the crowd's support. He opened his laptop, his fingers trembling as he typed. A blog post, raw and unfiltered, poured out. "Today, my partner and I were humiliated for being gay. But we fought back, and so can you." He hit publish, not knowing it would spark a firestorm. By morning, the post had gone viral. Social media buzzed with no hate in the air, and news outlets picked up the story. Ethan and Liam watched, stunned. As their pain became a rallying cry, strangers shared their own stories of discrimination, and allies demanded change. The airline issued a public apology, but Ethan knew it wasn't enough. This wasn't just about one flight attendant or one flight, it was about a system that allowed hate to thrive. Liam, ever the strategist, contacted a civil rights lawyer friend. "We can sue," he said, his voice steady but urgent. "Not just for us, but to set a precedent." Ethan hesitated, the weight of a legal battle daunting. But the memory of that torn ticket, and the faces in the crowd who'd stood with them, pushed him forward. "Let's do it," he said, his voice firm. Their lawsuit wasn't just about compensation, it was about policy change. They demanded mandatory sensitivity training, clear anti-discrimination policies, and accountability for employees. The airline resisted, but the public pressure was relentless. Protests sprang up at airports, and other airlines began scrutinizing their own practices, fearing similar backlash. Ethan and Liam's story became a symbol of resistance. They spoke at rallies, their hands clasped, their love a defiant act. But behind closed doors, the fight took its toll. Ethan struggled with anxiety, the constant scrutiny overwhelming. Liam, though strong, carried the weight of their shared trauma. Yet their love grew fiercer, a beacon in the storm. As the case gained traction, Ethan found himself reflecting on their journey. They'd left Ohio to escape judgment, only to find it in the skies. But they'd also found allies, strength, and a cause bigger than themselves. The fight wasn't over, but for the first time, Ethan felt they were rewriting the rules, not just for themselves but for everyone. The courtroom smelled of polished wood and tension, a stark contrast to the open sky Ethan once associated with freedom. He sat beside Liam, their hands clasped under the table, as their lawyer, Sarah, laid out their case against Horizon Airlines. The memory of that torn ticket fueled Ethan's resolve, but the airline's legal team was formidable, their faces cold and unyielding. Sarah's voice rang clear, detailing the incident with precision. The discrimination, the public humiliation, the viral outcry. She presented screenshots of Ethan's blog post, now shared thousands of times, and videos from passengers who'd witnessed the scene. Ethan's heart raced as the judge, a stern woman with silver hair, listened intently. This wasn't just about them, it was about every person who'd been told they didn't belong. The airline's lawyer countered, claiming Mark acted alone, a rogue employee who'd been fired. "Horizon Airlines does not condone discrimination," he said, his tone polished but hollow. Ethan's stomach churned. Fired or not, Mark's actions were enabled by a system that lacked oversight. Liam's grip tightened, a silent reminder to stay strong. Outside the courtroom, the world was watching. Protesters gathered at airports nationwide, their signs reading "Love Flies Free" and "End Hate in the Air." Ethan and Liam's story had ignited a movement, but it came with a cost. Hate mail flooded their inbox, accusing them of seeking attention or destroying a man's career. Ethan tried to ignore it, but each message felt like a dagger. Liam, ever protective, filtered the worst, but Ethan saw the strain in his eyes. One night, after a grueling day of depositions, Ethan broke down. They were in their small San Francisco apartment, the city's fog pressing against the windows. "What if we're fighting for nothing?" he whispered, his voice cracking. Liam pulled him close, his arms a steady anchor. "We're fighting for us," he said, "and for everyone who comes after us." Liam's words reignited Ethan's fire. They began working with advocacy groups, speaking at events to amplify their message. At a rally in Los Angeles, Ethan met Jamie, a young trans woman who'd been denied boarding because of her ID. Her story mirrored theirs: humiliation, powerlessness, and a desperate need for change. Ethan realized their fight was bigger than one airline. It was about dismantling systemic bias. The trial stretched on, each day a battle. Sarah uncovered internal emails from Horizon Airlines, revealing a culture of leniency toward discriminatory behavior. One email from a manager dismissed a similar complaint as not worth the hassle. The evidence was damning, and the public's outrage grew. Social media campaigns pressured other airlines to adopt stricter policies, and some began implementing sensitivity training preemptively. Ethan and Liam's relationship, though strained, deepened through the ordeal. They found solace in small moments: cooking dinner together, walking along the bay, stealing kisses under the stars. But the fight consumed them. Ethan's anxiety flared, and Liam's late nights drafting legal documents left him exhausted. Yet they refused to back down, their love a quiet rebellion against the hate they faced. A breakthrough came when a former Horizon employee testified. Maria, a flight attendant who'd worked with Mark, admitted the airline's training lacked any mention of LGBTQ+ rights. "We were told to prioritize customer satisfaction," she said, her voice trembling. But no one defined what that meant for people like them. The courtroom buzzed, and Ethan felt a surge of hope. The truth was unraveling. As the trial neared its end, Ethan and Liam prepared for the worst. The airline offered a settlement substantial but with a gag order. "Take it and move on," their lawyer relayed. But Ethan shook his head. "This isn't about money," he said. "It's about change." Liam nodded, his eyes fierce with pride. They rejected the offer, risking everything for a chance at justice. The judge's ruling came on a rainy afternoon, the courtroom packed with supporters and reporters. Ethan's heart pounded as she spoke. Horizon Airlines was liable for discrimination, ordered to implement mandatory training, and fined heavily. The room erupted in cheers, but Ethan's eyes were on Liam, whose smile was a mix of relief and triumph. They'd won not just for themselves but for countless others. That night, they stood on their apartment's rooftop, the city sparkling below. Ethan leaned against Liam, the weight of the past months lifting. "We did it," he whispered. Liam kissed his forehead, his voice soft but firm. "This is just the beginning." The ruling sent shockwaves through the industry. Airlines scrambled to update policies, fearing similar lawsuits. Ethan and Liam's story became a case study in advocacy, taught in law schools and corporate training sessions. But for Ethan, the victory was personal. He'd found his voice, and with Liam by his side, he knew they could face anything. The victory in court was sweet, but Ethan knew the real battle was just beginning. The ruling forced Horizon Airlines to change, but systemic bias didn't vanish overnight. He and Liam became reluctant celebrities, their faces plastered across news outlets, their story a beacon for the marginalized and a lightning rod for critics. Ethan struggled with the spotlight. At a speaking event in Chicago, a heckler shouted, "You're ruining America." The word stung, echoing the hate mail that still poured in. Liam, ever his shield, stepped in front of him, his voice calm but cutting. "We're not ruining anything. We're making it better." The crowd roared in support, but Ethan's hands trembled. He wasn't a hero. He was just a man in love, fighting to be seen. Their advocacy grew, fueled by stories like Jamie's and others who reached out. Ethan and Liam founded Sky of Equality, a nonprofit to push for inclusivity in aviation. They partnered with advocacy groups, training flight crews, and drafting model policies. Ethan poured his design skills into their branding, creating a logo of two intertwined wings, a symbol of love soaring free. But the work was grueling. Liam juggled his law practice with their cause, often working late into the night. Ethan's anxiety spiked under the pressure, his sleep plagued by nightmares of that day at the airport. One evening, he found Liam staring out their window, his face etched with exhaustion. "Are we doing enough?" Liam asked, his voice raw. Ethan took his hand, his heart aching. "We're doing everything we can." Their relationship faced new strains. The constant travel for speaking engagements left little time for each other. One night, in a Seattle hotel, Ethan snapped. "I miss us," he said, tears streaming down his face. Liam pulled him close, his own eyes glistening. "We're still here," he whispered. "This fight, it's us." They made a pact to carve out time, to nurture the love that started it all. A turning point came when a major airline, SkyVista, invited them to consult on their training program. Ethan and Liam flew to Dallas, nervous but hopeful. The room was filled with pilots, flight attendants, and executives, all white, mostly straight, some skeptical. Ethan's voice shook as he shared their story, but Liam's steady presence grounded him. By the end, a veteran pilot stood, his voice gruff. "I've been flying for 30 years. Never thought about this. You've got my respect." The session was a success, and SkyVista adopted their recommendations. Other airlines followed, citing Ethan and Liam's work as the gold standard. The couple's nonprofit grew, hiring staff to handle the demand. Ethan found purpose in the work, his anxiety easing as he saw tangible change. Liam, too, seemed lighter, his passion reignited by each small victory. But challenges persisted. A conservative group launched a campaign against them, claiming they were pushing an agenda. Protests greeted them at some events, and Ethan's heart sank each time he saw signs calling them sinners. Liam, ever the strategist, turned the hate into fuel, using media appearances to highlight their cause. "Love isn't an agenda," he said on a national talk show. "It's a right." Their personal lives intertwined with their mission. At a fundraiser in San Francisco, Ethan proposed to Liam on stage, the crowd erupting in cheers. Liam, usually composed, cried as he said yes. The moment went viral, a symbol of hope in a divided world. They planned a simple wedding, wanting to focus on their work, but the public's love for their story made it a media event. As their wedding approached, Ethan reflected on their journey. The torn ticket had sparked a revolution, not just in aviation but in their hearts. They'd faced hate, fear, and doubt, but their love had grown stronger. Ethan knew the fight wasn't over. Prejudice still lingered, and their nonprofit had more work to do. But for the first time, he felt ready to face it with Liam by his side. The wedding was small, held on a San Francisco rooftop under a starlit sky. Ethan and Liam exchanged vows, their hands trembling, their voices thick with emotion. The crowd, friends, family, and activists who'd become family, cheered as they kissed, the city lights a glittering backdrop. But Ethan's heart carried a quiet fear. Would their fight ever truly end? Their honeymoon was brief, a weekend in Napa Valley, stolen moments of peace before returning to their mission. Sky of Equality was now a national force, with chapters in major cities and partnerships with global airlines. Ethan designed training materials, while Liam negotiated with industry leaders. Their work was changing lives. Flight attendants shared stories of using their training to defuse discrimination, and passengers reported feeling safer. But the backlash grew fiercer. A conservative airline executive publicly called their policies woke nonsense, sparking a new wave of online hate. Ethan's anxiety returned, a heavy weight in his chest. One night, he found Liam drafting a response, his face tense. "We can't let them win," Liam said. But Ethan saw the toll it was taking. They were human, not heroes, and the constant battle was exhausting. A new challenge emerged when a smaller airline, Blue Wing, faced a similar incident. A gay couple was removed from a flight, citing disruptive behavior. The story echoed Ethan and Liam's, and they flew to Atlanta to support the couple, Mia and Rachel. Meeting them felt like looking in a mirror. Two white women, in love, humiliated for it. Ethan's heart broke as Mia recounted the incident, her voice shaking. "We just wanted to go home." Ethan and Liam rallied their network, organizing protests and media coverage. Blue Wing's CEO, under pressure, agreed to meet. The meeting was tense, the executive defensive, but Liam's legal expertise and Ethan's emotional appeal broke through. Blue Wing adopted their training program, and Mia and Rachel received a public apology. It was a victory, but Ethan felt the weight of every story like theirs. Their nonprofit expanded, hiring Jamie, the trans woman they'd met in LA, to lead outreach. Her passion and perspective strengthened their mission, but she also brought sobering news. Discrimination wasn't just in the skies, but in every corner of society. Ethan realized their fight was part of a larger tapestry, one they could only weave one thread at a time. Personal milestones kept them grounded. On their first anniversary as a married couple, Liam surprised Ethan with a trip to New York, where it all began. They stood in Times Square, the chaos of the city around them, and Ethan felt a surge of gratitude. "We're still here," he said, his voice soft. Liam smiled, pulling him close. "And we're not going anywhere." The industry was changing. Major airlines now boasted inclusive policies, and Ethan and Liam's training model was standard. But smaller carriers lagged, and international flights posed new challenges. In some countries, their love was illegal, a stark reminder of the work ahead. Ethan and Liam began advocating globally, partnering with international LGBTQ+ groups. The strain of their mission tested their relationship. Late nights and heated debates about strategy led to arguments. One evening, Ethan snapped, "I just want a normal life." Liam's face fell, but he nodded. "Me too," he admitted. They spent the night talking, rebuilding their connection, promising to balance their love with their fight. As their second year of marriage began, Ethan felt a shift. The torn ticket, once a symbol of shame, was now a badge of resilience. Their story had inspired laws, policies, and countless individuals to stand up. Ethan knew the fight would never fully end, but with Liam by his side, he felt unstoppable. 5 years after the torn ticket, Ethan stood at an aviation conference in Washington, D.C., addressing a room of industry leaders. His voice, once shaky, now carried the weight of experience. "Love doesn't need a first-class ticket," he said, "but it deserves respect." The room applauded, and Liam, in the front row, beamed with pride. Sky of Equality had transformed the industry. Their training program was mandatory in over 70% of U.S. airlines, and international carriers were adopting it. Ethan and Liam's story was taught in diversity workshops, their names synonymous with change. But for Ethan, the real victory was in the stories they heard. Passengers who flew without fear, crew members who intervened against bias. The fight had changed them, too. Ethan's anxiety had eased, replaced by a quiet confidence. Liam, once reserved, now spoke with a passion that inspired thousands. Their marriage, tested by fire, was stronger than ever. They'd learned to balance their mission with their love, carving out time for quiet dinners and long walks. Yet challenges remained. Some regions resisted their policies, and hate groups still targeted them. At a rally in Miami, a protester threw a bottle, narrowly missing Ethan. Liam pulled him to safety, his face pale but resolute. "We've faced worse," he said, and Ethan nodded, their hands clasped. They wouldn't be silenced. A defining moment came when the FAA invited them to consult on federal guidelines. Ethan and Liam worked tirelessly, drafting rules that would protect all passengers. When the guidelines were adopted, they stood together at a press conference, their hands intertwined. "This is for everyone who's been told they don't belong," Ethan said, his voice steady. Their nonprofit grew, with Jamie leading a new initiative for trans travelers. Ethan designed a campaign, Wings for All, featuring stories of diverse passengers. The campaign went viral, and airlines competed to showcase their inclusivity. Ethan felt a swell of pride, knowing their pain had sparked a movement. On a quiet evening, they returned to the San Francisco rooftop where they'd married. The city sparkled below, a testament to their journey. Ethan leaned against Liam, his heart full. "Do you ever think about that ticket?" he asked. Liam smiled, his eyes soft. "Every day. It's why we're here." The torn ticket had become a symbol of triumph. Airlines worldwide now followed their rule. Respect for all, no exceptions. Ethan and Liam knew the fight wasn't over. Prejudice lingered, and new battles loomed. But they'd shown the world that love could soar, even through the darkest storms. As they stood together, the stars above seemed to shine brighter. Ethan whispered, "We changed the world." Liam kissed him, his voice a promise. "And we'll keep changing it." Their love, once challenged by a single act of hate, had rewritten the skies, leaving a legacy that would guide generations to come.